plight of the poor is forgotten, and the great powers are engaged in world conflict. We need to turn this around and return to the promise we made with respect to the 2030 SDG agenda. As South Africa, our people and our government desire a return to peace, to multilateralism, and to partnerships for development. As countries gathered in this room today, and those who are joining us virtually, we all represent together a significant majority of the world's territory, population, and economy. We gathered here bring together continents, cultures, societies, and civilizations. The first speaker who will speak as a friend of Brics will be the Foreign Minister of the Comoros, a small island developing state which, as chair of the African Union, is carrying the voice of 55 African states, 1.4 billion Africans, and is part of a $3 trillion continental economy. With their exclusive economic zones, the over 50 small island development states bring together the second largest territory in the world after our Russian friends. We in this room need to determine a plan of action for our countries and for the world. We need to agree that the basis of the plan is the 2030 development agenda. We cannot allow a conflict in one part of the world to replace the ambition of eradicating global poverty as the world's greatest global challenge. So we need to examine, how do we bring the world's attention and resources back to this troubling fact? The 2030 agenda speaks of the need to transform and not just reform. One of the founding principles of Brics has been our shared vision of the urgent need for global governance reform toward a more just, fair, equitable, and representative world. 15 years later, we can see that there is little appetite for reform from those who enjoy control of major multilateral institutions. How do we transform them to ensure they respond to our needs? I have said we are formidable in number, we are formidable in economy. How do we ensure that Brics and Africa, Brics and the Global South, move forward together with a common voice and collective action? Is it plausible for us to play a role in ensuring that no one is left behind? 15 years later, we can see that there is little appetite for reform from those who enjoy control of major multilateral institutions. How do we transform them to ensure they respond to our needs? I have said we are formidable in number, we are formidable in economy. How do we ensure that Brics and Africa, Brics and the Global South, move forward together with a common voice and collective action? Is it plausible for us to play a role in ensuring that no one is left behind? I hope we can traverse some of these questions today. One of the things we always need to avoid is being in institutions that are wonderful for discourse, but where no action results. This is something that we as leaders need to address, because we exist as leaders to serve our people. In this meeting, as the Brics foreign ministers, we are hoping to achieve higher levels of cooperation and collaboration between all of us. We hope to learn from this meeting and your contributions how we can solidify our intent of working in partnership toward delivering mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism, all of which are associated with the SDG agenda. So, dear friends, let me conclude once more by welcoming you to South Africa and by thanking all the friends of Brics for agreeing to join us both in physical presence as well as those who join us virtually. Thanks to you all for being here.
I'm Anton Zolotnitsky, Izvestia from Russia, and my question is to Minister Lavrov. So, as we see now, many countries declare their desire to be invited into the BRICS group. For instance, today you met with the delegation from Saudi Arabia, who also expressed their desire to do that. Could you please tell us about the progress that is being made in this direction, and why do you think BRICS attracts so many countries? Thank you.
Well, indeed, we discussed this issue, and I did discuss it with the minister from Saudi Arabia this morning. As regards the approach of BRICS, it is still being shaped, it's evolving, and the Sherpas reported to us about the results they reached at this stage, and the chair authorized them to continue after they have listened to comments which were made by each of us at the meeting. BRICS is a different structure. It's a new organization based on the principles of equality, mutual respect, consensus, non-interference, and strict adherence to the United Nations Charter, to all its principles in their interlinkages. It is not for BRICS, to pick and choose something which you like in the Charter for this particular situation, and then to do the opposite for another situation. So it's I think BRICS symbolizes the evolution of the multipolar world, which is talked about very often and more so, and the attraction to more than a dozen countries of BRICS is a testimony to
that. This is a BRICS meeting, and as the BRICS family, we have discussed along with the New Development Bank. We had one of the senior executives of the New Development Bank briefing our meeting on work that the bank has been doing, looking at the potential use of alternative currencies to the current internationally traded currencies, and looking at how we strengthen the arm of the BRICS Development Bank, and also ensure that we do not become victim to sanctions that have secondary effects on countries that have no involvement in issues that have led to those unilateral sanctions. So certainly this was discussed, and it is work that is being considered by the officials of the NDB and will be guided to them as to what the future models might be. Excellencies, colleague ministers of foreign affairs, BRICS Sherpas and Sous Sherpas, Excellencies, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to welcome you once more to Cape Town for our meeting as BRICS Ministers of Foreign Affairs and friends of BRICS Foreign Ministers. South Africa is chairing BRICS this year, and we agreed the theme of BRICS and Africa, partnership for mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism. It's our vision and hope that BRICS would provide global leadership in a world fractured by competition, geopolitical tension, inequality, and deteriorating global security. This is the third time South Africa has chaired Brics since it was invited to join the body in 2010. That time was a time of optimism. Countries were considering problems bigger than themselves. We were all united in horror at the global ravages of war, shocked by the impact of climate change, disturbed by the continued presence of global poverty and underdevelopment. In 2015, just 5 years after we joined BRICS, the world joined together to adopt the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The opening lines of the preamble to the goals reminded us that this agenda is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace in larger freedom. We recognize, it continued, that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. All countries and all stakeholders acting in collaborative partnership will implement this plan we all promised. It continued, we are resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and want, and to heal and secure our planet. We are determined to take bold and transformative steps to urgently shift the world onto a sustainable and resilient path. As we embark on this journey collectively, it concluded, we pledge as the world community that no one will be left behind. That's what we all promised in 2015. Excellencies, it's clear that today we no longer share an understanding of that greatest global challenge. This is despite the reality that the COVID-19 pandemic set back our efforts to achieve the SDGs by, it is said, almost a decade. We're all aware there's increased economic risk for the most vulnerable, with low growth levels in much of the globe, and certainly neglect of those in the greatest need. Food inflation and high energy prices have strained incomes and resulted in high debt costs and persistent uncertainty. And the attention and resources of our richer partners have been diverted, and the agendas of our multilateral organization no longer respond to the needs and demands of the global South. So we see a world which has faltered in cooperation. We're aware that developed countries have not met their commitments to the developing world and are trying